Hello everyone. Welcome back to Dui's Ghost Story channel on YouTube. I hope you have an exciting time listening to today's ghost story. To kick off today's episode, I'll share a tale about a spirit possession in Anjong. This story was sent by a young man who had previously shared a story featured in episode 86. He has an uncle, Uncle Hai, who is a sorcerer. And the first story I'll tell is about Uncle Hai's son's life. The first story of our episode is about the spirit possession, titled The Spirit Possession. This story was told to him by his sworn brother, Hugh, during the time they worked together. They were close friends, and Hugh shared a story about a spirit possession involving his grandmother, which occurred in 1998. At that time, Hugh's grandmother was 68 years old, suffering from age-related ailments, and had severe joint pain despite various treatments. One day, while riding her bicycle to the market, she was involved in an accident, breaking her bones, including her kneecap. The doctors at the hospital said her condition was severe due to her age and weak health, making recovery difficult. After a brief hospital stay, her health deteriorated, and the doctors advised the family to take her home for a final farewell. Shortly after returning home, Hugh's grandmother passed away. On the day of the funeral preparations, many relatives and neighbors gathered around. As she lay there, ready for burial, she suddenly woke up as if she were alive. Everyone around was startled and ran away, except for Uncle Hai and Uncle Ba, who were sorcerers and remained calm. Hugh's grandfather, not a sorcerer, was also frightened but managed to stay composed because it was his wife. Hugh mentioned that Uncle Hai was more skilled in using sorcery, as he practiced both herbal magic and sorcery. When she awoke, she asked her husband for water, and he gave her a cup, which she drank. She then asked for porridge, which was being prepared for the funeral guests. Her husband handed her a bowl of hot porridge, which she consumed in one gulp. The family realized she was possessed because they had experience with sorcery and recognized her unusual behavior. In some cases of spirit possession, families are unaware until the possessed person makes strange requests, or they know and attempt to exorcise the spirit. But Hugh's family was different. Uncle Hai knew she was possessed and explained to Hugh's grandfather that a spirit had followed her from a hospital, waiting for her to pass away to possess her body. Uncle Hai suggested exorcising the spirit, but Hugh's grandfather refused because he felt compassion for his wife and wanted to spend more time with her, even if she was possessed. He believed the possession allowed him to be close to her as if she were still alive. Ultimately, he chose not to exorcise the spirit, and Uncle Hai agreed silently. After a few days, things returned to normal, but a week later, Hugh's grandmother began making strange requests. 1 week later, my grandmother began demanding to eat 3 live chickens a day. My grandfather, devoted to her, complied with her unusual request. He would catch live chickens from their home to feed her, but eventually they ran out. During that time, my grandfather had to borrow money to buy more chickens for her. The daughters-in-law were too afraid to care for her, knowing the strange circumstances. Over time, my grandmother appeared to grow younger, looking like a woman in her mid-40s rather than someone in her 70s. She moved with surprising agility, showing no signs of old age. Every night, she would suddenly burst out of the house and disappear into the night. My grandfather tried to follow her, but she moved so quickly that she vanished without a trace, returning only at dawn. Around that time, neighbors began to notice missing chickens. It was widely believed that my grandmother was stealing them, but no one dared confront my grandfather, fearing her wrath. The neighbors whispered among themselves, wondering why she was allowed to continue her nightly thefts. Eventually, my uncle, known as Bak Hai, insisted that they needed to exorcise the spirit possessing my grandmother. He warned that if left unchecked, it could become dangerous. After much persuasion, my grandfather agreed. Bak Hai and another uncle, Bak Ba, prepared a ritual to expel the spirit. As they set up the ritual, my grandmother screamed and climbed to the top of a pillar. The uncles worked together to perform the exorcism. My grandfather used a mulberry stick and bamboo to strike her. Soon, her body began to emit a foul odor, and she collapsed, leaving only a skeleton. Her flesh had decomposed over time, and they quickly prepared a coffin to collect her remains. Afterward, Ba hammered nails dipped in black dog blood into the coffin to seal it, restoring normalcy. This story, shared by my friend Hugh, echoes tales from episode 86, where another uncle, also skilled in the mystical arts, passed down his knowledge to his children, particularly the youngest, whom we call on Ba. In the past, Bakhai nurtured a type of plant known as LAI in his home, which was believed to possess mystical properties. It was said that if the plant matured, it could consume a chicken in about 30 minutes, leaving only the feathers behind. It is said that people no longer have bones or honesty because the LAI tree has consumed everything. If you don't believe in the story of feeding a chicken to the LAI bush, you can ask the sorcerers who practice magic that way. To practice magic, as you mentioned, one must have a master and be taught the way to cast spells to control spirits and demons according to one's commands. Most who possess the ability to practice low-band magic use it to heal rather than harm, as using it for evil purposes would result in severe consequences. In your area, Uncle Hai was famous for his skills in dealing with spirits and demons. His house was rumored to be so haunted that no one dared to visit. In 2004, Uncle Hai helped a family afflicted by a severe curse. Despite knowing the risks, he felt it was his duty to assist them. Unfortunately, he passed away that night because he had violated the natural order by intervening. Before he died, he instructed that he be buried facing the sunset to rest peacefully. He also passed his knowledge to his youngest son, Ba, who was already married by then. In 2004, Ba's wife experienced strange behavior after losing her cloak in the river while bathing. Ba, having learned from his father, realized that his wife's soul had been captured by the Dragon King's son to be his bride. He attempted to rescue her spirit by performing rituals his father taught him, but his skills were insufficient. He sought the help of his father's spirit, Uncle Hai, to fight against the Dragon King's son. Together, they managed to return his wife's spirit to her body. Uncle Hai warned Ba that without his help, he would not have succeeded. After this incident, Ba forbade his wife from ever bathing in the river again, fearing the Dragon King's son might capture her soul once more. This story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of tampering with spiritual forces and the importance of having a strong belief in one's faith. If we follow Buddhism, we must have a firm belief in Buddhism. Similarly, if we follow Christianity, we need to fully trust in it. It's not right to follow one religion, but practice the customs and rituals of another, as it shows a lack of complete commitment to any religion. This is similar to the situation of the woman in the story that Duwei is about to tell. This story about possession was shared by Tondat. It happened on his maternal side. He has an uncle, his mother's younger brother, and the story involves the uncle's daughter, whom we'll call Twina. Tondat mentioned that his entire family follows Catholicism. As everyone knows, if someone marries a Catholic, they're required to learn and follow their spouse's religion. The uncle's wife wasn't originally Catholic, but converted after marriage. However, she wasn't fully committed to Catholicism and occasionally performed secret rituals. This was one of the small reasons that led to her daughter being possessed. Currently, the couple runs a business at a market that used to be a cemetery, making the area spiritually unclean. Regarding chakras, Tondat explained that they are energy points or meridians in a human body. Opening these chakras is akin to unlocking a person's energy field, which stores spiritual energy. However, he admits his understanding might not be entirely accurate. The story begins when the uncle's wife attended a course on opening chakras. The local priest warned that opening chakras is like inviting evil spirits. After attending the course for a while, she brought her youngest daughter, Tui, to learn about chakras as well. Due to these activities, she often performed rituals, sometimes alone, but this time she took Tui with her. After that particular ritual, Tui was possessed. Following the night of the ritual, Tui began speaking strangely, preaching doctrines that seemed to oppose Christian teachings. Her family, all devout Christians, realized her words were contradictory and unsettling. Sometimes she claimed to be possessed by Jesus, and other times she said she was a fallen angel. Tond had asserted that it was impossible for Jesus or an angel to speak through someone in such a manner, likening it to demonic possession. After hearing Thuy's words, her family grew suspicious. Coincidentally, the next day was Sunday, a church day. Her uncle suggested taking Thuy to see the priest, but Thuy became agitated and refused, claiming the priest was something negative. Thuy's words, along with her unsettling demeanor, left everyone around her friend praying and chanting, creating an eerie atmosphere. It's unclear whether Thuy was possessed by a demon or some other entity. Concerned, her grandmother gave her a glass of holy water from the church, typically used for those nearing death. However, Thuy refused to drink it, prompting her grandmother to suspect something was amiss. As prayers echoed throughout the house, Thuy's children kept repeating phrases like, "I will forgive you," and Thuy herself scolded everyone, claiming they were acting against their faith. She particularly targeted homes with images of Jesus and the Virgin Mary, threatening to erase any that weren't blessed. Frustrated, her grandmother warned Thuy that she would wash her face with holy water if she continued speaking in such a manner. Eventually, Thuy was taken to the church to meet with the priest, who suggested she be taken to Our Lady of Ta Pao, or to Father Long, as he felt unequipped to handle the situation himself. In the end, Thuy's family decided to take her to Our Lady of Ta Pao. After 3 months there, Thuy began showing signs of improvement. During her stay, Thuy insisted they all leave before she would talk. Even then, she hesitated, sensing 2 guards outside the door. Finally, the priest managed to communicate directly with the spirit possessing Thuy. Realizing the consequences of meddling with spiritual practices like chakra opening. While Thuy's case wasn't extremely severe, it could have worsened over time, potentially endangering her life. Every faith has its unique values and teachings. It's crucial for individuals to maintain their faith and not waver, as seen in this story. Hello everyone, welcome back to the YouTube channel Ghost Stories by Uncle Ba Duy. I hope you all have an exciting time listening to ghost stories today. Today, we continue with an intriguing story sent by a young woman from Incheon. The ghost stories she shares are tales from the past, recounted by her grandmother. According to her, back in the day, her grandmother often spoke of many ghosts. Sometimes, when walking on the road, ghosts appeared just like ordinary people, so over time, people became accustomed to it. Let's begin with the first story, titled Aunt Two Murdered in the Sugarcane Field, sent by Nak, who currently lives in Incheon. Nak shared that her grandmother is now 78 years old, and the events in the story occurred when she was just 10 years old. Back then, her grandmother lived on an island in Incheon and was friends with Aunt Tuesday. According to her grandmother, Aunt Two was very talented in her youth. She could plant vegetables, sell them at the market, and catch snails and crabs. Her domestic skills were exceptional, and her beauty was one of the reasons for her tragic fate. The incident happened 13 days before the full moon of the month. Nak's grandmother did not specify the exact month, but the events began one afternoon around 4 or 5 p.m. Every evening around that time, Aunt Two would go to the garden next door to pick vegetables to sell at the market the next morning. At home, there was only Uncle Fook, while Aunt Two was busy picking vegetables. Seeing that there was only one man and one woman in the house, and with a young niece nearby, Uncle Fook's evil desires surfaced. He plotted to lure Aunt Two to the sugarcane field to harm her and commit vile acts. Uncle Fook called Aunt Two, suggesting she gather some vegetables for him so she wouldn't have to pick them the next day. Aunt Two was delighted, thinking she would have vegetables ready for sale. She followed him to the back of the house to gather vegetables. Nak's grandmother described the area around the house as surrounded by sugarcane fields and cassava plantations. While Aunt Two was busy bundling vegetables, Uncle Fook attacked her unexpectedly. Aunt Two screamed loudly, but the area was isolated, with only sugarcane fields nearby, and it was already dusk. The locals had closed their doors for the evening. As Aunt Two's screams intensified, Uncle Fook removed a cloth from around his neck his work cloth, and strangled Aunt Two until she stopped breathing. After a few minutes, he used the cloth to strangle her, causing her tongue to protrude gruesomely. Once Aunt Two was dead, Uncle Fook remained calm, checking if anyone had returned from the fields. Seeing that the locals hadn't returned yet, he gathered sugarcane leaves and covered Aunt Two's body. After completing his deed, Uncle Fook returned home as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Aunt Two's mother was waiting at home, wondering why her daughter hadn't returned. Around 5 or 6 p.m., she would usually be home, but today she went to her uncle's house. It was already dark, and feeling uneasy, her mother went outside to the front yard, set up a hammock, and lay there, waiting for her daughter to return. As time passed without any sign of her daughter, her mother dozed off and had a strange dream. In the dream, her daughter appeared, looking sad, and said, "Mom, please go to the sugarcane field and bring my body back. Or go to the riverbank and retrieve my body because they threw me into the river. I'm so cold." Startled by the dream, her mother woke up, unsure if it was real, but feeling anxious nonetheless. It was nearly 9 p.m., and her daughter still hadn't returned, so she called everyone in the house and the neighbors to search for her. Despite searching the village, they couldn't find her. Her mother remembered the dream and suggested they check the sugarcane field. When they arrived at the field, they discovered her daughter's body floating near a canal covered with sugarcane leaves. Her clothes were disheveled, indicating a struggle. This happened decades ago, so there was no police involvement. They simply brought the body home for a funeral. Her mother fainted several times from shock. After the funeral, just 12 days later, her mother had another dream where her daughter appeared beneath the wooden floorboards, looking up with a sad expression, saying, "Mom, someone familiar killed me in the sugarcane field." In the dream, her mother promised to investigate, but her daughter insisted it was someone they knew, someone close to them. Confused by the message, her mother woke up crying, unable to understand who the killer could be. At that time, the local authorities were inefficient, and it took them 14 days to investigate, ultimately finding nothing. Meanwhile, in the family of Mr. Nam Fook, a relative of the deceased, strange things began to happen. His wife, who was pregnant and didn't attend the funeral due to superstition, started experiencing severe bleeding. Concerned about her pregnancy, she visited the clinic, but they found nothing wrong. However, her health deteriorated, and she became pale and weak, losing weight rapidly. The villagers speculated that these events might be linked to the supernatural or that the couple was involved in the girl's death. The story of Aunt Two was circulating everywhere and eventually reached her mother. When piecing everything together, she realized that on that fateful day, her daughter had gone to pick vegetables at Mr. Nam Fook's house. Knowing this, she was certain that the person who had harmed her daughter was indeed Mr. Nam Fook, who was also her brother-in-law. That day, Aunt Two's mother prayed and said, "If the land has taken my daughter, let her rest in peace, as it is still family." She acknowledged Aunt Two's strong spirit, as she had died young and was murdered. Aunt Two appeared in a dream to her mother, saying she wanted to avenge her death by harming Mr. Nam Fook's unborn child. However, her mother pleaded with her, saying that vengeance should be left to fate. Seeing her mother's tears, Aunt Two promised not to harm him. After her daughter's promise, Aunt Two's mother decided to take legal action. The authorities investigated and arrested Mr. Nam, but due to his influence, he only served a brief sentence of about 35 days. In the following time, Aunt Two's spirit haunted many in the village. Her presence was felt so strongly that even during the day, people claimed to see her ghost. Mr. Nam and his wife, who owned the land, experienced unusual disturbances, like hearing footsteps and seeing a large face following them while carrying food to workers in the fields. Terrified, they abandoned their tasks and ran. The villagers recounted these eerie encounters, noting that such occurrences began only after Aunt Two's death. People were often haunted by a large face, and even the narrator's grandmother experienced it while working in the fields. One day, while resting under a tree, she heard scratching on her hat and felt a presence above her. Upon removing her hat, she was confronted by the same large face, which terrified her. These stories of Aunt 2's ghost became well known, as she continued to haunt those connected to her untimely death. In the village, everyone saw it and got scared, throwing their conical hats and running home, leaving the fields unattended. After returning home around 3 o'clock, Grandma told Dad and Mom that she had been frightened by a ghost, describing its face with large, sharp teeth that looked like an upside-down fence. Not like normal human teeth. To calm her down, Grandma's mother bathed her with special leaves, and after a month, she felt better and dared to go out to water the beans, but never stayed late again. Much later, after Grandma got married, she was frightened by the same ghost again while working in the fields. She heard footsteps behind her, and suddenly someone threw dirt at her from behind. Angry, she turned around but saw no one. She threw dirt back at the source, a patch of water spinach, but no one was there. Frightened, she ran away, and the next day, the owner of the spinach patch demanded compensation for the damage. Grandma knew it was the ghost again, so she prayed to it, asking it not to scare her anymore, and it stopped. The ghost then started haunting fishermen, like Mr. Tam near Grandma's house. One night, while fishing, he saw the ghost lying in his net, smiling at him. Terrified, he abandoned his net and ran home, not daring to fish for a month. Meanwhile, the ghost's mother often saw her daughter in dreams, not to scare, but to remind her of things. Once, the ghost told her mother to pick a ripe soursop fruit before it was stolen. When the mother checked, the fruit was indeed ripe and partly eaten by worms. The ghost continued to visit her mother in dreams, giving her numbers to play the lottery, but the mother didn't believe in gambling and shared the numbers with neighbors, who won, while she didn't play. The ghost eventually confronted her mother for not using the numbers herself, saying she wouldn't give them anymore. The mother wished the ghost would reincarnate instead of haunting people. Seeing her mother cry, the ghost promised to stop. There was a promise that she wouldn't haunt people anymore. However, the whole neighborhood found out about her giving lottery numbers. Every day, they would gather at her grave to ask for numbers, and many won the lottery. Out of 7 days in a week, they won on 4 days. Because of this, the lottery bookies went bankrupt and couldn't pay out anymore, leading them to close their businesses. The entire neighborhood won thanks to her, causing a huge stir as the bookies had no money left to pay. Angry, the bookies sought a sorcerer to visit her grave, using black dog blood and charms to trap her spirit so she couldn't give out numbers anymore. The sorcerers planned a secret ritual to seal her grave. Before this happened, she appeared to her mother in a dream, asking her to intervene and request a prayer ceremony instead of using dark magic, which would prevent her from moving on. Her mother woke up, alarmed, and immediately gathered people to go to the grave. They arrived just in time to see the sorcerers preparing their ritual. Her mother's outcry stopped them, and both families negotiated. Her mother requested a prayer ceremony for her daughter, ensuring she wouldn't return to haunt them. Thanks to her timely warning, she could move on peacefully. After this incident, she never appeared again, and her aunt, who was married to Uncle Nam Fook, gave birth to a healthy child. It seems she listened to her mother and let go, sparing her aunt and the child. Later, Uncle Nam was released from prison and didn't cause trouble with other women anymore. This concludes the first story. Stay tuned for the next one in the following episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Share your thoughts on this story in the comments below, and let's look forward to the next one. Goodbye, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the YouTube channel of Ghost Stories by Uncle Ba Dewey. I hope you have an exciting time listening to ghost stories. Today, Dewey will bring you tales related to the past in the Bintan district, particularly near the foot of the Saigon Bridge, and another story about hotels in Vung Tau. Let's start with the first story, which involves small tales about Bintan district in the past. This story was sent to Dewey by a woman who also shared stories that Dewey had previously told in the episode about ghosts on the Saigon Bridge. You can listen to that episode again if you want. Today, she shared more stories related to the area where she lived. She recounted that back in 1997, Her mother had a friend who was known for working in the Kotkyo profession, which means she was a madam. After some time, this woman retired from being a madam, but the reason behind it was that she was frightened by ghosts. The story goes like this. When the woman was still working as a madam, she had 6 young women who were considered her close associates. Every night, these women would stand near the foot of the Saigon Bridge to find clients. During that time, a young man would come by on a 50 cubic centimeters Cub motorcycle to look for women to spend the night with. When he arrived, the women would choose one among them to go with him. Afterward, the chosen woman would return and tell the madam that the man was peculiar. He would sleep with the woman, but always insist on leaving before dawn, around 3 or 4 a.m., saying he had to leave before the chickens started crowing. This was strange because the women usually wanted to sleep until morning, not leave in the middle of the night. The madam asked the women about the payment, and they said the man paid generously and fairly. However, after some time, the man stopped coming for a while, about 2 months, which made the madam feel disappointed because he used to give her a lot of money. Eventually, after 2 months, the young man returned to the madam's place to find a companion. That night, he took one of the women with him, as usual, but this time he confessed that the money he used to pay was stolen from his parents, and now he had money given by them that he couldn't use. The woman asked why the money couldn't be used, and the man showed her the money, which turned out to be ghost money. She was surprised, but thought it might be a prank or a mistake. She didn't suspect anything supernatural at first. A week later, the man returned, gave the madam money, and took the same woman with him. This time, he suggested that they go to his house instead of staying out. The woman agreed, thinking it would save money, and she was also interested in getting to know him better. Without hesitation, she got on his motorcycle and they headed to his place. There was something about his house that could be described with music surrounding it. In front of his house, there was a beautiful grapevine at the gate, full of grapes. In front of the gate, there were also 2 dogs tied up with leather straps. He invited the lady into the house, and they talked to each other as if they were husband and wife. That night, as they talked and shared stories, he gave her a lot of money and gold, which she had no idea where it came from. She was happy, but then they fell asleep. The next morning, she felt the sunlight shining directly on her face. As she started to wake up, she realized her legs couldn't move. She could only crawl. When she fully woke up, she looked around and found herself in a cemetery, next to a grave that had his name and the year of his death, 1900. She was terrified, crawled out to the main road, and called for a rickshaw to take her back to her mother's house. After telling her mother what happened, they checked her bag, finding only fake money and gold. After sharing this horrifying story with her friend, they went to the market to buy fruits and incense and visited his grave to pay respects. After that, her mother retired and went back to her hometown. The lady heard that her friend later got married, but passed away shortly after, as she didn't seek help to break the spiritual bond. The next story took place in Tansong, Bintan, where she and her mother used to live. In the 1900s, locals often visited abandoned graves to seek lottery numbers. One day, women from her neighborhood took a bus to the grave of Phuktam, gone, to perform seance. They brought a young man and woman, hoping their presence would help summon spirits. However, the seance wasn't successful until one woman took over, following written instructions. Suddenly, the spirit appeared. After some questioning, the spirit promised to provide winning lottery numbers, but demanded someone stay behind. This scared everyone, and they rushed back to the bus, leaving behind the woman who led the seance. They returned to find her in a trance, heavy and unresponsive. They slapped her awake and carried her out. As they reached the road, they heard loud laughter from the graves, and when they looked back, they saw a man on top of the tomb. Everyone guessed that the man was around 50 years old. He sat there without smiling and urged others to play, insisting he wouldn't play himself. People were scared and left. After everyone boarded the bus, the witness saw the same man at the gravesite. It turned out he was the bus driver. When the bus started moving, the driver's face changed completely. That was the first and last time my mom participated in the seance. After that incident, she never dared to join again. The third story happened in Bintan, Ward 22. One year, there was a funeral in my sister's neighborhood. It was a typical funeral, but instead of burying the deceased, they took the body to the crematorium for cremation. Before the cremation, the family held a ceremony with the monks. During this time, people attending the funeral made a bet with a woman from my sister's neighborhood. They wagered that if she stayed inside the crematorium for 5 minutes without leaving, they would give her 100,000 dong. At that time, 100,000 dong was a significant amount. The woman agreed, but asked for 5 cups of milk coffee in addition if she wasn't scared. After the bet, the woman entered the crematorium. Since the crematorium hadn't been used yet, it wasn't hot inside. The men outside locked the door as a prank. After waiting for 5 minutes without hearing any noise from her, they opened the door and found her sitting silently, not saying anything. As soon as she stepped out, she fainted. The bus carrying the funeral attendees had to return to take her home to check her health. After that day, her personality changed completely. When they brought her home, she became very aggressive. She was around 40 years old at the time and had tattoos on her face, which made her look intimidating. Now, possessed by spirits, her appearance was even scarier. My sister's house was opposite hers, so she often witnessed the woman's drastic personality changes. Sometimes she seemed possessed by child spirits, crying, asking for milk and candy. Other times she spoke like a man, demanding cigarettes, or like an old woman, chewing betel nut and asking for more. The neighbor's family knew that the woman was possessed, so they took her to a nearby temple. However, she resisted and screamed loudly. Eventually, they tied her up and brought her to the temple. Once there, the head monk played a Buddhist scripture for her, calming her down. After a while, she became obedient and fell asleep, as she hadn't slept for days due to her agitation. The head monk explained that she was possessed by about 100 spirits, constantly jumping in and out of her body. The only solution was to offer 100 portions of food daily for 100 days. Her family followed the monk's advice, and after 100 days, she was finally free from possession. This was one of the stories from Ms. Chan in Bintan, who advised people not to play with spirits or engage in activities like spirit calling, challenging each other in haunted places, or visiting crematoriums. Such actions can lead to unforeseen consequences. After sharing the Bintan stories, let's move to Vung Tau for another tale involving a seaside guest house. This story was told by a young woman from Bin Thuan. In 2018, her extended family traveled to Vung Tau for a vacation when she was 18 years old. The group consisted of 12 people, including her immediate family of 5 and relatives from 2 other families. They rented a vehicle and booked a guest house approximately 12 kilometers from the beach. The guest house had about 45 rooms, with single rooms on the lower floors and double rooms on the upper floors for families. Upon arrival, the guest house owner directed them to stay on the 3rd floor. Even though the 2nd floor was unoccupied, the guest house seemed quite deserted, possibly a 2- or 3-star establishment. Once they settled into their spacious room with 6 beds, her mother noticed a pair of women's glasses on one of the beds. Curious, her mother picked up the glasses and considered wearing them, but decided against it, putting them back down. The young woman found this strange and wondered about the previous guests. It happened that someone left their glasses behind, and the room staff was supposed to take them to the reception desk so the guests could retrieve them. But for some reason, after preparing the room for new guests, the old guests' glasses were still there. Everything seemed fine until everyone went down to the beach for a fun time. But when they returned to their rooms, Mr. Hung's family had a huge argument. The couple argued loudly without any apparent reason, and people thought it might be due to drinking or some trivial issue. That night, Mr. Hung's family moved to another hotel, and Mrs. Duy, Mr. Hung's wife, also left, possibly unrelated to the argument. At that point, only your family and Mr. Hung remained at the hotel. Around 4 or 5 a.m., while you were sleeping, you heard sounds like the TV was on in your room, with people chatting lively. You thought it was morning and everyone was awake, ready to go to the beach, as early risers often do to avoid the sun. But upon opening your eyes, you saw everyone was still asleep, so you assumed you were just dreaming and went back to sleep until dawn. The next morning, you asked Mr. Hung if he heard anything, and he mentioned hearing the TV too. More eerily, Mr. Hung heard a woman's cries for help, but upon opening his eyes, he saw no one. Later, while Mr. Hung was trying to sleep, he heard the door open and saw a woman dressed in white entering the room, standing at the foot of his bed, staring at him without doing anything. His bed faced the door, and his feet pointed towards it. Frightened, Mr. Hung kept chanting prayers until morning, when he decided to check out of the hotel. When he asked the receptionist about the room, they remained silent, which made everyone suspect there was something about that room. After leaving, people speculated why Mrs. Duy returned home despite her lack of involvement in the argument. They thought she might be a devout person, and if there were spirits, they wouldn't bother her, possibly prompting her to leave. Your friend was telling a story about their workplace, a restaurant in Ben Thuan. They don't have money for Newton because they are still working at that restaurant. This restaurant has been operating for 8 to 9 years and has 6 floors. The first 3 floors are a karaoke bar, while the upper 3 floors are a restaurant. You and a colleague usually sleep under the stairs for convenience. However, for some reason, you decided to sleep on the first floor one night. You turned off all the lights and didn't use the air conditioner for fear of the owner unexpectedly coming to check. While sleeping, you clearly saw 2 girls in white dresses outside the door, holding hands and leading you to their spot, saying, "Come down here and lie down next to us." You were startled and asked your colleague if she heard anything, and she confirmed she heard the same. Both of you were frightened and held hands as you ran downstairs. You shared the experience with other employees because you had just started working there. They mentioned that strange things often happen at this place, like the elevator button showing the 7th or 12th floor, even though the building only has 6 floors. Sometimes security guards hear their names being called while sleeping on the 3rd floor. Even when they're alone, employees often hear knocking sounds at night. The reason for these occurrences is unknown, possibly linked to the history of the place. You're still working there, but you're scared. As we conclude today's Ghost Stories, don't forget to like and subscribe to Dewey's YouTube channel. Share your thoughts on the story in the comments below, and stay tuned for the next episodes.